for a chin and just hoped the sound wouldn't come back. And it didn't. And eventually, Mary fell asleep. The following morning, when Mary woke up, she immediately kind of took stock and realized, okay, I'm okay, everything seems fine in the house. She didn't hear any knocking. She woke up, she dressed, there in the kitchen. She seemed perfectly fine, albeit.
Why can't I run?
You hearing all this kind of noise for a while. And at some point you'll get I think just stop. That's it.
She was okay. She was in the kitchen in good spirits. Mary just kind of breathed quietly, even though, again, she really has no idea what's happening. She has no idea that it's sinister about it. Totally. And so it was just...
Yeah, if you're close, you don't have time to run away.
Totally normal. And so pretty quickly, Mary just fell into her everyday routine. Food. She was water, chatting. At no point did Mary really happen. In part, and she was moved by it. So it never came. But they're chatting, having their there's very clear and fairly loud tapping stuff in the kitchen. But as soon as the tapping starts, Mary immediately stops because she recognized it as the same sound she was hearing before that spooked her so bad. And she looked over at Cora without saying anything. Seeing it, Cora heard it. Cora ignored it. Mary, you heard that music? Was that happening? And Cora's like, yeah, I think it's coming from the cellar. And Mary, she's like, I could have sworn I heard that happening. Cora, she's like, well, it sounds like it's rummaging around. That's probably what it is. Mary, who at this point is desperate to find a logical, non-scary explanation for what's going on, just immediately goes down the stairs into the cellar and begins looking for mice that would move. That's all this is. It's mice making these sounds. But when she found it, she's looking around. Mice, kind of mice. Now it's not coming from the cellar where the stock sounds originally. It's coming from somewhere above. And as soon as Mary
It's not. Every time I go to my the sound goes somewhere else. Like, come on, stop it. Stop. I've been doing this.
to it upstairs in the kitchen, like she was kind of startled. So Mary runs back upstairs to the kitchen. She looks at Cora, and Cora is visibly distressed because she's like, I heard it. It was in here. It was in the kitchen or somewhere nearby. I didn't hear it. But I heard it. As soon as you went down there, I heard it. And so at this point, Mary is she doesn't know what to do. She cannot deny that there's something strange happening in the house. Her daughter is now fully corroborated. And it's like, oh, sort of like house. Mary, she left the house, she went next door, knocked on the side of the game, playing, there's something happening, knocking down, tapping in the house, scaring me, Cora became the governor, and absolutely feel her. So Mary was back in the house, she and Cora, standing in the kitchen, periodic rings, tapping sounds, and then the neighbor, he comes over. He comes inside, right away, when he comes in, he starts to hear the plumbing, that little noise. Mary and Cora were great. He seems pretty confident. So Mary and
do we really need my audio though?
as he begins to check the kitchen,
I don't think we do.
But as he's checking all the pipes and fittings and kind of looking for the origin of this tapping sound, he realizes as he's checking, the tapping sound is sometimes it sort of seems like the tapping is coming from the room, but other times, as he's looking right here, the tapping sound is coming from somewhere else.
Just do the normal shit. Stop doing the fucking jump sweep, bro. Bro, this is what I'm talking about.
I'm not about to go crazy. I'm not about to.
There we go.
I'm not about to do all this. This is my husband and me. What's up? What's that? I don't care. You eat my eggs, waffles, and bacon. I don't got time for this. I'm not about to go crazy.
Finally, 6 days after the haunting, others were out newspapers talking about it over the place, and in some ways that's legitimate fight, but they also really didn't know what to do. Nobody had any solutions for it. Mary and Cora were sitting at the table, being out the options. What do we even do? Even if this is, our dead husband, our dead father, we can't. They're having that kind of discussion. As they're sitting at the table, so much so that the conversation needed to stop when this happened started. The person looking at what's going on. And then as this tapping continued, they realized it was being right underneath. And so Mary sort of reflexively moved back and trying to get out of the bubble, really into the close tapping sound. As she's sitting back, never noticed it would turn out the tapping sounds that they gave were not being caused by Mary's however, the actual origin of these tapping sounds was in some ways equally interesting. So Cora had recently had a bad case of Russian, which is also known as the dancing plague, causes your body to have these involuntary movements that the person who has this condition is often totally unaware of. These people can flail around suddenly.
My ass.
Oh, sorry, I didn't? Okay, it's cool.
I'm not ever see that. I'm not ever see that. You're princess. Get the hell on something has attacked itself in you. You're telling me if I see you and you laid out and you start doing this,
It's old ass nigga.
nah. I'm sorry. That will freak me the hell out. I promise you, bro.
And not even know they're doing it. And so what was happening is Cora was making the tapping sound, but had no idea she was making the tapping sound because it was being caused by Synonym's Korea. Now, it seems like, well, how didn't Mary catch on that her own daughter is tapping her feet or flicking her hand and causing this tapping sound? Well, the reality was, when the tapping first started, a lot of times, Mary was not in the same room as her daughter. And her daughter did not know she was making the tapping sounds. So her daughter is genuinely scared of the tapping sounds.
Now he's
she's making
fucking
them. And
shoots
Mary
all the way
doesn't
through.
know it's her daughter making them. And so combined, they're like, oh my gosh, what's happening in our house? And then before long, they had kind of gone down this path of, it's my dead husband, it's my dead father, he's the one making these sounds. And then it's like they had tunnel vision. As did all the other neighbors, as did the reporters. Everybody wanted this in some ways to be a haunting.
Bro,
So
how?
nobody's checking to see if maybe Cora is tapping with her hands and creating this tapping sound. Because again, Cora was fully convinced she was not making any sense. And finally, when she and her mom were sitting at the table discussing what they were going to do 6 days after the haunting began, you hear this really intense, close tapping sound. When Mary kind of leaned back to kind of take stock of the room and figure out what was going on, she noticed under the table Cora's foot stomping on the ground. Cora didn't know it was Severance's career.
I'd have been out.
I've been pissed.
One afternoon in November of 2021, a middle-aged woman named Nicole Petit was on break at her job in the city of Decatur, Alabama. While she was sitting in the break room, she pulled out her phone and she called her 21-year-old daughter, Hannah. The phone rang a couple of times, and eventually Hannah picked up, and right away, Nicole could tell her daughter, Hannah, was still very much not feeling well. She could hear it clearly in her voice. So Nicole's daughter was a stay-at-home mom with 2 very young kids, which, was totally exhausting in its own right. And in fact, on this phone call, Nicole could hear in the background the sound of the kids yelling and running around and crashing into things. Clearly, it was just chaos. But Nicole knew Hannah could not just be tired from tending to the kids, because over the last couple of months, what Nicole had noticed was every time she spoke to her daughter, whether her daughter's kids were going crazy or not, Hannah just completely sounded under the weather. And in fact, Hannah often was complaining, again, over the past few months, of not only feeling a deep exhaustion, but also of feeling really dizzy and nauseous. Now, over the past few months, Nicole had been telling her daughter, you have to go see a doctor. This is not normal. This is not just parenting fatigue. Something is off. You need to go get looked at. But Hannah, who was known to be very, very tired, generally didn't really go to the doctor much. She said to her mom, like, I'm fine. I'm just exhausted from the kids. It's no big deal. And so she kind of pushed that idea aside. And so this time, as Nicole's talking to her daughter, and she can clearly hear that her daughter is not better, she's still feeling awful, she knew trying to push her daughter to go see the doctor wasn't going to work. So instead, she said, okay, Hannah, when's Brian going to be home? Brian was Hannah's husband.
That's why we go for damage.
No, he's not home yet. I don't know yet. So for the most part, Brian was, a very active parent and husband, but he also
She slick looked tired in that photo too.
a very successful chiropractor. And in fact, he had had so much success at his private practice that recently he'd even been able to fully renovate.
Can you fucking dodge, my nigga? What is wrong with you?
Space and all this new staff. He was working even more than usual, which, financially was great for the family. But it meant he basically was absent all the time.
Okay.
So it had become kind of commonplace that Brian was nowhere to be seen. It was kind of Hannah alone with the kids and this mystery illness she was suffering from. Now, Nicole obviously understood the nuance here.
Damn, Nicole. Okay. My God, hey, check on your wife, like, come on. I understand I understand what you got going on, but at the same time, you gotta, hey, man, something gotta give.
Something gotta give. Come on.
That, Brian's practice was very important, not just to him, but to Hannah and her family. And so instead of, being upset with Brian, Nicole had tried very hard to make herself available to her daughter, to take care of her kids, to help her out whenever she could. But there was a limit to how much Nicole could help.
So we go for health.
Also worked full time.
How the fuck am I getting there?
Be around all the time to help her daughter. Like today, she was working. She wished she wasn't, so she could go be with her daughter, but that was just the way it was. For the next couple of minutes, Nicole and Hannah just chatted like mother and daughter. And then at some point, towards the end of the call, like Nicole always did, she told her daughter, like, hey, I really think you ought to go to the doctor. If you tell me what day you're gonna go and you make an appointment, I'll go over and take care of your kids. I'll even take
There's no way that got me,
whatever
bro.
you need. Don't let logistics be the reason you don't.
I guess I could use
Whatever
like
you need,
shurikens
help you if I can. I'll
in that
flex my
instance.
schedule to accommodate you. But like Hannah always did, she just kind of brushed off her mom. Okay, maybe I'll go see a doctor. I don't know, but I think I'm gonna be fine. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna take vitamins. I'm gonna eat well. I'm gonna do all the things. And
Yeah, but at some point, that's not working. If none of what you're doing is working, then maybe go get checked.
Sure. Nicole sighed when she heard this because basically, she hears her daughter saying, I'm not going to the doctor's today. But Nicole
That
didn't
bitch
want
stubborn
to.
as
She
fuck.
told her daughter that she loved her, and she named her by her mom to go see a doctor. And didn't. She really had convinced
Is she
herself
retarded? I mean, is
this
she
was just,
stupid?
you know, she was going to grit this one out.
I don't give a
But
fuck
then
what she
finally,
was, nigga.
in January of 2022, so now it's been months and months of Hannah having these symptoms, and her mom basically begging her to go see a doctor. And by this point, Hannah can't argue with the fact that she is basically falling apart. She's lost so much weight. She actually can't even walk around the house anymore. She literally sits on a swivel chair, like a desk chair, and just pushes herself around the house. And she is absolutely sick.
Oh my
It's
God.
something that she can't even deny anymore.
Oh my
So
God.
finally, in January of 2022, Hannah says, okay, Mom, I'll go to the hospital. Nicole, in some ways, was incredibly relieved that finally her daughter is doing the thing she should have done a long time ago. And then also, Nicole was just so annoyed with her daughter. That's why
Oh, I thought it was the other one.
This is so silly. But regardless, Nicole's like, great. She tells her daughter, I'm going to come over, pick you up. I'm going to take you to the hospital. I'll be there with you. So she goes over to Hannah's house. She gets there. Hannah, in her chair, wheels over to the door, and Hannah looks normal. She looks like she weighs less than 100 pounds. She's so pale. Her hair looks like it's falling out. I mean, she looks absolutely sick. She looks like there's something seriously wrong with her.
I definitely
Sister down the stairs.
Definitely hit LB.
She also gets her kids and takes them along as well. And they drive to the hospital. And when they get there, eventually Hannah is brought into an exam room along with Nicole and the kids. And a nurse comes in and they begin checking Hannah's vital signs and asking her some questions. And they also weighed Hannah. And eventually, after that was done, the nurse told Hannah that, hey, you only weigh 84 pounds. This is
it is tweaking.
Holy shit.
I've been doing the same shit. It has not been working.
The husband can take off work.
Oh, no.
Jesus.
way below what's considered healthy. This is like an emergency. And based on the other things you're telling me about over the last few months having these symptoms, I'm worried you might actually have stomach issues. Now, even though Nicole had anticipated that something seriously was wrong with her daughter, it still hit her with a freight train to hear that her 21-year-old daughter had stomach cancer. I mean, she'd never even heard of somebody that young having
I
stomach
definitely hit LB once
Nicole
again.
looked over at her daughter, Hannah too,
Yeah, that was
horrified.
late.
I mean, for her, she still believed this was all just gonna pass. Whatever this is.
That bitch is stupid as fuck. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Stomach cancer is not something that just goes away. A couple minutes later, the doctor came in the room and explained to Hannah and Nicole that the next step here was to test Hannah to see if she actually had stomach cancer. Now, the doctor said it's entirely possible this could be something else. Again, based on all the symptoms you described and these sudden extreme weight loss, unfortunately, this really does appear to be stomach cancer. So we're going to check, and in a couple of days, we should have an answer. So Nicole and Hannah, despite obviously being shocked,
Okay, are you serious?
they both said, whatever we need to do, that's what we're going to do. A few days later, Nicole was at home, and her phone rang as her daughter called. Now, to this point, Hannah had gone in and begun doing some of the tests to see if she had stomach
It's got too much of an ass
They were
beating.
waiting for some of the results to come
And do
back.
that stupid shit.
And so when Nicole saw the call coming in, she's thinking, oh my goodness, this could be it. I could be getting a call where Hannah has been told one way or the other about this stomach cancer. And so with quite a bit of anxiety, Nicole answered the phone, and when she heard her
Yeah, when you
daughter,
beat this bitch
her daughter was
charmless,
not telling her about the test results.
it's kind of just
Her
baked
daughter
into your
was
system.
speaking in such a low tone that she could barely hear her. But she basically croaked out to her mother that she felt so sick she had to be taken to the hospital. So Nicole, she took everything, sped over to her daughter's house, and when she found Hannah inside, it was like Hannah could barely move. She was so confused, she was so sick, so pale, so skinny and malnourished. It was like her daughter was dying. So she scooped her daughter up and she flushed her. Later that day, Hannah was in a hospital room
Ow.
stabilized. And she had
I'm getting emotional because like,
I fucking hit. Oh, okay. I did it again.
like it's not even. I work. I do YouTube. I do my regular job. I work out. I try to study for that. But like then, I try to have time for my wife, and you know, sometimes we do. But it's just like there's a lot of times where we just, cause she works in the morning and I work, so we don't really have that much all the time.
Okay, it's fine.
And like she's fine.
I guess it's not fine.
You know, we do have like our getaways and stuff. I feel some type of way that the husband.
I had 10 more. I could have just stunned her again. I could actually.
And she actually was showing signs of what's called acute respiratory failure, which basically meant her lungs were shutting down. And in fact, one of her doctors had told Nicole that had Nicole not gone over there and rushed her daughter to the hospital on that day, very likely she would have died. She would not have survived another 24 hours of hospital. So this was as close as it can come.
This isn't charmless, so.
But they had been able to stabilize Hannah, and she was now resting in bed.
I don't care.
They were now
Go for
trying to
it.
figure out what to do. One of the doctors pulled Nicole aside and said, look, like, we know she's being tested for stomach cancer, and we don't know if she has that or not yet, but acute respiratory failure is not connected to stomach cancer. And on top of that, it's incredibly rare for someone as young as Hannah. So we really don't know what's going on here. All we can do is keep her here, keep her stable, monitor her,
This thing is
and
annoying.
run some additional tests. So Nicole, she said. And so, for a few days, that's what the medical staff did. Continue to monitor and keep Hannah stable while testing her to figure
That's cool.
out how somebody her age and her condition could be contracting respiratory failure. But after a few days of this, out of nowhere, Hannah has this severe sudden seizure. But after her seizure passed, the medical staff began investigating Hannah's brain. The seizure is a brain-related event. And as they're looking into Hannah's brain, they discover that she has also contracted viral
AIDS?
meningitis.
What?
Which is inflammation of the membrane surrounding the brain. And generally speaking, viral meningitis is not life-threatening, but in rare cases, it can be. And considering the fact that Hannah had other very serious medical issues going on, and the fact that her particular viral meningitis case was very severe.
And the fact that the husband is not there. The dad is not there. Like,
Yo.
God, yo, God. She got so much going on. I really hope she makes it, man. Jesus Christ. She got so much
Worried that she could be someone who could die from this meningitis, or potentially have very serious brain damage if they didn't do something.
I could have blocked that. I'm
About
not
the swelling of her brain. And so a decision was made to put Hannah into a medically induced coma so that she would lay perfectly still and you could just wait for the swelling in her brain to go down. But what that meant functionally was that Hannah would be in this coma indefinitely until
Indefinitely is crazy.
brain or who knows what. I mean, basically the doctors
Trying to itch and
didn't
munch
know
at
what
me.
was wrong with her. However, just a couple of days after Hannah had been placed in this medically induced coma, some of her imaging tests came back. All the testing they had run on Hannah to figure out what was going on. And in particular, there were these imaging tests that came back from her abdomen. And what they discovered inside of her abdomen was truly shocking. Hannah's entire digestive tract was covered in white spots.
What?
What?
Doctors all knew that those spots were not cancer. They were something worse.
Worse.
Running a few more tests to confirm their theory. Once they had that information, that yep, what we suspect is going on here, they called the police. So remember Hannah's husband, Brian? He's the very successful chiropractor. Well, his practice
That-
was so
what are we doing?
that he had had the funds to fully renovate his office and build his bigger, better chiropractic practice. And that was great, not just for him, but also for Hannah, for his family. They were making money hand over fist. Everything was great. Except there was an issue. One of the upgrades that Brian wanted to do within this renovated space was to include an X-ray room. And when people build X-ray rooms, they actually line the walls of the room with these big sheets of lead to keep the radiation from penetrating.
Oh, nice.
But lead is incredibly toxic and harmful to humans, especially if you ingest it or you touch it. It's not something you really want to interact with at all. It needs to be kept at a safe distance. But after the renovations were done, the X-ray room was built. There were several sheets of lead that didn't make it into the walls. There were extra sheets of lead that just didn't get used. They were out in the open.
What?
No, I saw that. That's
Discovered
cool.
that, and they began investigating. They found somebody had been shaving off pieces of those extra lead sheets, little bits of lead. They were shaving them off and planting them inside of Hannah's vitamins.
Oh, shit! Oh, Jesus! Oh, that's why he wasn't showing up. That's why we didn't hear much about him during
The whole story, he's like, where is the husband?
He wasn't. He was working, but he was working on getting her out of here.
Religiously, every day, believing those were the things that were going to make her healthy. But in reality, ironically, they were doing the opposite. She was literally poisoning herself every time she took one of those vitamins. Who was the person who was shaving off all that lead and literally trying to kill Hannah? Her own wife. Right. All those white spots inside of Hannah's digestive tract were literally just pools of lead that had accumulated inside of her because her husband had been trying to poison her to death for months. Miraculously, though, Hannah would survive. After nearly 2 months in a medically
Nice.
induced
Good
coma,
job, Hannah.
Hannah was healthy enough and got to go back home with her kids. As for Brian, he was arrested, found guilty of attempted murder, and
Nice.
sentenced to life in prison. His motive was the $1.3 million in life insurance.
niggas just stay hungry for a check, bro. It's not even funny, bro.
What is this? What the hell? What?
Real shit.
Was the $1.3 million in life insurance policies that he had taken out.
All this for some damn money.
Some money. You gonna kill your wife? Everything's perfectly fine, and then you're gonna kill your wife for some cash, bro. That is pathetic.
I don't know if she's the revengeful type. I don't know if she's ever going to get back at him.
Shout out Gator Martin, man. It's the best horror video reactor on YouTube. Inner Reflection conquered. Yeah, ain't no way I was doing that shit just like without something going in the background.